The swords clash as soldiers battle against the mindless creatures you'd typically call goblins. The platoon captain is doing his best to lead his men, but it looks like these critters are a bit much for them to handle. So the captain turns to our protagonist for help. Enter our guy, Ju Dong-hoon, a necromancer working as a mercenary hired to support this squad. Without hesitation, he draws his wand. With a single command, the skull over his wand starts to radiate an ominous power. Out pop a bunch of skeletons who immediately jump into the fray and start taking on the goblins. The soldiers watching from the sidelines are in awe of the necromancer's commanding presence. They never expected to see someone so powerful in an E-rank dungeon. Now that they've seen what he can do, they're sure he must be some high-ranking expert. It finally makes sense why the party leader seemed so relaxed earlier, but they're still puzzled about how their captain managed to recruit someone as strong as him. Meanwhile, our guy is overhearing all the praise, and he can't help but feel a bit satisfied. I mean, being a necromancer is pretty rare. Out of the 8 billion people in the world, only about 1,000 have that ability. It's a pretty prestigious profession. But even though the title of necromancer sounds cool, the skeletons he summoned are just regular E-rank monsters, so our guy doesn't exactly feel that proud of his work. Even the soldiers, who were amazed just moments ago, are starting to realize that these skeletons are the most basic summons a necromancer can control. One of them tries to argue with his friend, claiming that the necromancer is probably using these low-level creatures on purpose to show just how easy it is to clear an E-rank dungeon. He's definitely a bit jealous of our guy, but we all know that's not the case. Ju Dong-hoon isn't just an ordinary necromancer, he's a cursed one stuck at E-rank. He has the ability to control the souls of the dead and can even overpower enemies using fiery spirits and poisons. But the curse he carries prevents him from summoning anything stronger than skeletons, making his power feel limited and frustrating. This whole situation is just heartbreaking for him, as he watches others grow stronger while he's stuck in this position, feeling incredibly jealous of those around him. It all started 10 years ago when humans began receiving unique abilities when they reached adulthood, at the age of 20. These abilities were completely random. Some people got powers related to blacksmithing or sewing, while others received abilities related to exploration, healing, or buffing. Because these powers were given by chance, not everyone was thrilled about their abilities. Still, thanks to these powers, humanity was able to survive the monster invasion. But what the soldiers don't know is that Ju Dong-hoon's growth was limited by a curse. He can only summon E-rank skeletons, and that's all he'll ever be able to summon until the day he dies. So, while the soldiers see him as a prestigious necromancer, they don't realize that his potential has been stunted, leaving him stuck at the bottom. Nowadays, Ju Dong-hoon is just an E-rank dungeon hypercarry. After the raid, our boy meets the team leader to report that the task is complete. With that, he announces his departure and heads out. As he walks through the bustling streets, his mood sinks lower. He's dejected, sad, and consumed by thoughts about his cursed state. What gnaws at him the most is the weight of people's expectations. They see the title Necromancer and assume greatness, not knowing he's held back by a curse that chains him to mediocrity. He then notices that he has received his paycheck for today's job, which is a measly 40,000 won. The amount stings, especially since even a part-time job would pay him more. But this is the only path he truly wants to walk, and giving up isn't an option. Suddenly, his attention is caught by a live broadcast on a massive screen nearby. It's actually a piece of great news. Apparently, the Dark Lord, who cleared the Lunar Rift last time, has become a ranker in just 3 years of being active. With that, South Korea now officially has 37 rankers, placing it second in the world behind the United States. It's a huge deal, and it's a major milestone for the country. Not to mention, it's the first time a hunter has become a ranker in just 3 years, excluding the original rankers, of course. It goes to show just how powerful the abilities of a necromancer can be. Our guy listens to the news with a mix of regret and frustration on his face. While everyone is climbing the ladder, he is stuck at the low bottom. What makes it even worse is that the Dark Lord received his authority on the same day as our boy. To think that while Ju Dong-hoon is stuck as a cursed necromancer who can only summon skeletons, the other guy has already become a ranker. The jealousy and frustration burn inside him so intensely that it's as if you can see flames surrounding him. But he can't deny the reality. Even though he resents it, sitting still and doing nothing won't change anything for him. If he wants a different outcome, he has to take action. So he arrives at this remote place to train. He commands his skeletons, and they quickly appear, ready to fight. He only has 2 effects so far. Effect 1 consumes 10 energy to summon an ordinary skeleton, and he can summon up to 10 skeletons at once. Effect 2 allows him to name each individual skeleton. Dong-hoon recalls the day he discovered that he could name each skeleton. At the time, he was genuinely excited, thinking this might be the game-changing skill he had been waiting for. He believed it could unlock a hidden potential he didn't yet understand. But, as it turned out, he was just being delusional. Anyway, he walks over to his rattling skeletons, commanding them to stretch a little and work out those weak tendons of theirs. We then get an official introduction to Ju Dong-hoon's skeleton friends. It turns out that every time he summons them, he always gets the same skeletons. The one wielding a huge sword is Bony 1, the one with a long spear is Bony 2, and the one with a bow is Bony 3. Dong-hoon would always push them to train, hoping to make them stronger. And to his surprise, he did see some results. The skeletons, who once struggled to even handle a goblin, could now easily take on 3 at a time. But that was where the progress stopped. E-rank skeletons were still just E-rank skeletons. No matter how much harder Dong-hoon made their training, or even if he hired a C-rank teacher for them, they couldn't get any stronger than that. The reality was harsh. No matter how much he tried, they were stuck at their limits. While Ju Dong-hoon is drowning in his own despair, we notice a filthy orc lurking behind some bushes. As soon as Dong-hoon senses its presence, he turns around, and the orc steps out of hiding. The creature is massive, with sharp fangs that make Dong-hoon recoil in fear. He wasn't expecting to encounter an orc of all things here. The system chimes in, announcing that the skeletons are being suppressed by the presence of a strong being, and all their stats have been reduced by 20%. Dong-hoon is absolutely frustrated and terrified. The fact that this useless pile of bones is getting overwhelmed by an orc makes him annoyed. His sense of helplessness only grows as he watches the orc steadily approach him. The presence of this monster means one thing: there's a dungeon break nearby. A dungeon break is a phenomenon where a dungeon which hasn't been cleared properly breaks open, releasing monsters into the outside world. The orc raises its massive axe, and Dong-hoon quickly commands his skeletons to block. Bony 1 steps in just in time to take the blow, saving Dong-hoon from certain death. However, the orc easily yanks Bony 1 away, like the skeleton is nothing more than a paperweight. With that devastating hit, both Bony 1 and Bony 2 are down for the count, leaving Dong-hoon in a dire situation. Realizing things have become hopeless, he tries to dash away as fast as he can, but the Bony 3 steps in and strikes the monster with its arrow. While Bony 3 is loading up another arrow, Dong-hoon decides to summon more skeletons. With 70 energy remaining, he can summon up to 7 more boneheads to help him out. Dong-hoon summons 2 more skeletons and commands the trio to attack from a distance. But no matter what strategy he applies, nothing seems to work against this brute of a monster. The orc is so powerful it can literally turn these weak skeletons into powder with a single punch. One by one, 3 of his skeletons are taken down, and the orc remains completely unhinged. With the last bit of energy he has, Dong-hoon summons more skeletons, but the orc is more than ready to crush them. The situation is looking grim, and Dong-hoon feels like his end is near. He doesn't want to die so soon, but it seems like there's no escape. Just as he's about to lose hope, a particular system window shines brightly, glowing gold, like a glimmer of hope in his darkest moment. The notification reveals that Dong-hoon has triggered a hidden condition, something he never expected. It's a unique ability, one tied to cursed necromancers like him, and the condition is called 1000 Uses Rule. As the system announces this, Dong-hoon begins to radiate with this golden energy. The system further reveals that in order to upgrade his unique ability, he must summon ordinary skeletons 10,000 times. But that's not all. His rank has also been increased to D rank, and rewards connected to his new rank will be arriving soon. Dong-hoon's desperation grows with each passing second. He just wants the system to throw him whatever it can, knowing that he might not live long enough to use it later. He's pushed to his limits, and every instinct tells him he's about to meet his end. Finally, the system responds. It refills his energy, and his rank suddenly jumps from E rank to D rank. As soon as the upgrade completes, his skeletons begin to glow with a golden aura, signaling that they've gained new power. With this new strength, Bony 1 quickly draws his sword, stopping the orc's attack before it can land. This time, Bony 1 remains uninjured, unlike before when the orc had tossed him aside like a trash bag. Dong-hoon can't help but feel elated. Seeing his skeleton's new abilities gives him hope for the first time in a while. In order to check his new rank further, he immediately commands the system to summon more skeletons, and right away, 2 new skeletons appear, Bony 4 and Bony 5. Bony 4 is equipped with a sturdy shield, while Bony 5 holds a wand in his hand. Dong-hoon lights up like a kid in a candy store after getting overjoyed by the new additions to his army. The skeletons immediately engage the orc, working together with impressive coordination. The shield-wielding skeleton takes the role of tank, while the mage skeleton summons a massive torrent of fire and throws it at the orc. Bony 3, the spear skeleton, doesn't just stand by either. It charges forward and delivers the final blow to the monster. Together with their combined efforts, the orc is brought down, finally dead. Dong-hoon stands there watching in awe. Ever since he came to know that he is cursed, he had thought his life was screwed, but now, it feels like the gods have given him a second chance. Later we find Dong-hoon slurping down some tasty instant noodles, his attention fixated on his system stats. He can hardly believe it. To think that his abilities could actually grow, he had no idea this was even possible. But even now, he's unsure of what exactly he needs to do to reach C rank. Reaching D rank felt like a fluke, so the idea of advancing further seems almost out of his grasp. Still, he decides to stick to his usual routine of training his skeletons. The power of an intermediate skeleton is impressive enough, and Dong-hoon wonders just how much stronger they could get. The thought of his mage skeleton being able to spam blizzard spells fascinates him. He can also imagine his spear and sword skeletons becoming true masters of their respective fields. But only time will tell, and Dong-hoon eagerly waits for that moment to come. The next day, when he enters the guild's office, he notices a group of people gathered, chatting amongst themselves. Their faces are filled with concern, which immediately catches Dong-hoon's attention. As he listens, he notices one of the individuals wearing a green badge. It's clear from the badge that the person is a C-rank hunter, and Dong-hoon can't help but wonder why someone of that rank would be here, in a place like this. The boss quickly calls out to Dong-hoon, announcing that he has big news to share. The news is about the Parang Guild, established by the legendary Korean ranker, Gi Parang, known as the Fine Bow. Apparently, everyone in Korea knows about this prestigious guild, and it's well known for its skilled hunters. The boss explains that the guild is planning to explore a newly opened dungeon and needs porters. The pay is 10 times higher than typical jobs. The mention of the fat paycheck quickly grabs Dong-hoon's attention. His boss asks if he's interested since they're accepting E-rank hunters as well. After all, with most other jobs nowadays paying so little, this sounds like a golden opportunity. Dong-hoon sees the potential in this job, but he's still unsure. He decides to first check out what kind of dungeon it is. His boss reveals that it's a newly discovered dungeon near Paju, and it's quite tough. In fact, 5 different teams have already failed to clear it. The number of failed attempts is staggering, leaving Dong-hoon shocked. His boss further reveals that the dungeon's rank has yet to be determined. The previous teams that tried were amateurs, but this time, with the famous Gi Parang leading the team, there's no way things could go wrong. And as a porter, Dong-hoon wouldn't even have to fight. He'd just be there to carry supplies. All he has to do is just work on his task and get his money. This prospect seems tempting, but the tenfold reward is probably just hazard pay for that dungeon, especially the one with the undermined rank. And if Dong-hoon has to be honest with himself, he's mentally exhausted from that encounter with the orc yesterday. But as much as he hates to admit it, the job is seriously tempting. He remembers something the Dark Lord guy said during the interview. If anyone wants to level up their rank faster, they'll have to take on dungeons above their level. Otherwise, there's no way to progress. The higher the rank, the bigger the risk. But that also means more opportunities and rewards. So, my guy grabs the contract, signs it right away, and then asks for a week off. His boss gives him the green light immediately. He's so happy about it that he promises to treat our boy to a meal soon. Later, my guy heads to his usual spot, where he summons his party of skeletons, and, seeing the menacing power they're exuding, he feels proud to see that his training has actually paid off. He commands them to take their positions, and tells them to start the madness. The skeletons quickly start playing their roles. The sword skeleton cuts through the log like it's a cucumber, while the spear skeleton drills a giant hole through it with his spear. The archer skeleton is shooting arrows that literally drill through multiple trees at once. My guy is left boggled, watching in awe at the true power of a D rank. It's almost as powerful as a C rank. I mean, he knew they'd gotten stronger, but he never thought they'd be this strong. At least not this quickly. Looking at the banged up dummies, he decides it's time to upgrade his training gear. These wooden scarecrows aren't cutting it anymore. But to get new equipment, he's got to spend money, which is something he's pretty reluctant to do. Sure, it's great that his skeletons have gotten stronger, but the real problem is himself. What if a powerful opponent targets him instead of the skeletons? It won't matter how strong his summons are, it'll all be over for him then. Right at that moment, Dong-hoon notices one of the skeletons walking toward him, holding out a wand. He's a bit bewildered to see this, but he grabs the wand anyway, and that's when he notices a barrier forming around him. He's not sure why the skeleton reacted this way. It's almost as if the skeleton read his mind, like it was answering his thoughts. Then the other skeletons start walking toward him. One of them even gives him a thumbs up. Dong-hoon is surprised to see the skeletons interacting with him this way. They used to just follow his orders without much else, so what's changed? How is the mage skeleton suddenly capable of using a shield barrier instead of just firing fireballs? That's when the shield skeleton drops his giant shield, and after getting Dong-hoon's attention, points toward the dummies. Dong-hoon has no idea what's going on, but later, we learn that this shield skeleton just want to act as dummy for others to practice. Well, it looks like Dong-hoon doesn't have to spend his hard-earned money after all. The skeletons engage in training sessions, each of them working on their own skills. Dong-hoon decides to have the spear skeleton attack him, wanting to test if the air shield is as sturdy as he thinks. The mage skeleton quickly casts the air shield, and the spear skeleton launches its attack. Surprisingly, the shield holds up perfectly, not breaking at all. This is enough reassurance for Dong-hoon that, at the very least, he'll be safe in real battles. He then tells everyone to continue practicing. This time he wants to act as the target. The skeletons immediately start attacking him, trying their hardest, but no matter how much they try, Dong-hoon remains unscathed. Meanwhile, the system window floods his vision, notifying him that his skeletons have leveled up. Not only that, but the system congratulates him, mentioning that due to the first growth after awakening, the status window has been unlocked. Dong-hoon sees the status window for Bony 1 appear in front of him, where he can view all the stats, skills, and everything related to Bony 1. The same goes for the other skeletons. Each of them now has their own status window. Dong-hoon feels incredibly satisfied seeing all his efforts paying off. Now all he needs to do is raise them comprehensively. With that in mind, he finally vows to train them until they become the world's strongest skeletons. Later, the big day finally arrives for Dong-hoon to start his new job. He's packed a sleeping bag and more than enough emergency food, fully prepared for whatever comes his way. However, the moment he remembers his position as porter, he can't help but feel a bit annoyed. That's when one of the guys from the squad announces that all the participating mercenaries need to head over to the dungeon. He tells them they must wait in front of the dungeon, as the plan is to enter all at once. Dong-hoon reflects that the dungeon is pretty close to Paju Station. The hole inside it looks like an average dungeon that's been naturally generated. The other mercenaries, on the other hand, start to get nervous. It seems like this is a high-difficulty dungeon. They talk about how the thicker the color around the hole, the higher the chance the dungeon will be more complex or difficult. But then again, they're somewhat relieved to be with Parang, so they're confident that not much will go wrong. One of them even jokes that he just wants to finish this quickly so he can go home and have some rice soup and soju. However, Dong-hoon doesn't seem to think that just being with a big guild is enough to keep them safe. You see, there are countless dungeons in this world, and just as many hunters who've gone missing in them. The scars and deaths often get overshadowed by the glamorous spotlight of the rankers. The number of lost lives is uncountable, yet the world moves on. But still, Dong-hoon is ready to go in, willing to put his life on the line and risk it all. Suddenly, he hears a lady calling out to him. When he turns around, she vanishes into thin air. He has no clue where she went, but he can hear her voice clearly. She finds it interesting that she can sense the energy of a D rank inside him, even though his rank plate clearly says he's an E rank. He asks her continuously who she is, but the lady makes it clear that he'll have to answer her questions first. She asks why he's hiding his abilities from everyone in Parang, and why he chose to participate as a porter. This is making Dong-hoon even more anxious. How could she know such small details about him? The mysterious lady, on the other hand, can tell that he's getting suspicious of her. She picks up on the look on his face. Finally, Dong-hoon musters up the courage to ask her if she's a spy who received acting classes. The lady finally starts appearing back, and it looks like she thinks of our boy as another spy sent by another guild. The moment he takes a full look at her, my guy is left absolutely awestruck when he notices a golden plate, which is only given to S ranks or higher. This means she's the #1 ranker among South Korea's 37 rankers. The Dark Empress, Gi Soil, Parang's guildmaster, and Giparan's only little sister. Thanks to her unique ability, she's the one person you definitely don't want to make angry. Although she looks quite scary, to think he would even get the chance to talk with that ranker he's admired for so long. Dong-hoon gets humbled and tries to humbly explain that she's misunderstood, because he's definitely not a spy from another guild. He's barely a D rank, and if it's a competing guild of Parang, it would probably be a big one. So why would they use a hunter like him? The girl goes quiet with a serious look on her face, but then she chuckles, and that chuckle turns into full-blown laughter as she apologizes, saying she was just joking. Her sudden 180-degree shift in mood catches him completely off guard. Why would someone of her caliber pull a prank on a nobody like him? It's clear that her presence commands attention, and everyone around is visibly awestruck to see her. Meanwhile, Dong-hoon finds himself buried in his thoughts again. Did she run a background check on him? He's starting to suspect she might have seen him training his skeletons. Something far from ordinary. Still, this feels like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a ranker to notice him. She quickly apologizes for her earlier actions, admitting that she may have been a bit rude to him. She explains that she found it fascinating how a porter with an E-rank badge could manage to house 5 D-rank energies inside them. Well, it seems he's been caught, and he doesn't know how to counter this because, let's face it, she's absolutely right. Now that he thinks about it, the fact that she grasped his strength through energy detection is mind-blowing on its own. Ji Soil then mentions that her older brother asked her to join the second team's expedition as the scout, so she was looking for a porter, and just so happened to come across a suspicious one right here. She questions him about why he volunteered for the job, even though it could be a little dangerous. However, she acknowledges that, with his skills, he's undoubtedly the most capable among the porters, and he doesn't seem like the type to get scared and run away. Her questions are getting him more and more on the edge. But finally she drops the conversation, and given his skills, she promises him double reward once the expedition ends. This feels like an unreal dream to Dong-hoon. Not only is he getting a double reward, but he also gets to tag along with a ranker. He doesn't even hesitate before accepting her request because opportunities like this don't come often. Before we dive into this mysterious dungeon, let's break down how dungeon ranks work. Apparently, dungeon difficulty starts at 3 and goes all the way up to S. However, these ranks aren't set by any system. Humanity had to subjectively rank and quantify them. The tricky part is that you can't determine a dungeon's rank in advance. It's an unfortunate reality, as there's no reliable method to gauge a dungeon's difficulty beforehand. All anyone can do is head in and figure it out as they go. If there would be anything that can be done, it'd be to check the brightness of the aura surrounding the dungeon entrance. The darker it is, the more likely it's a high-level dungeon. However, even this method isn't foolproof. To standardize things, the association had to establish criteria. If a dungeon couldn't be cleared with 5 or more hunters of the same rank, the rank would be increased. And if 5 or more A-rank hunters participated but still couldn't clear it, the dungeon would then be designated as S-rank. Unfortunately, this process inevitably required sacrifices. The unranked dungeon Dong-hoon is about to enter fits into this category. Since sending their main forces isn't an option right away, a scouting team is sent in first to assess the situation. As soon as he enters the dungeon, the first impression he gets is that it's like he's entered a cave. Thankfully, they don't have any issues with visibility due to the luminescent pearls scattered around. One of the hunters decides to take those pearls in order to sell, figuring they could get a decent sum from them. But the guy with the red hair tells him to stop being reckless, reminding him that there have been hunters who've died from carelessly touching items in the dungeon. Dong-hoon can't help but notice how everyone seems to be fairly relaxed. Well, no surprise there, everyone except Ji-soil, who's an S-rank, has an A-rank badge. Ji-soil then warns everyone not to get too comfortable and tells them to prepare themselves. She gives commands to 2 members, Little Fire and Swift Blade, to scout around for 1 cycle. She then calls out to their guide, Kang Sun-wook, and tasks him with looking out for an immediate exit and covering the porters. Kang Sun-wook is confident, sure that he'll find it without issue. Ji-soil asks him about his unwavering confidence, and he responds that if he can't handle a task as simple as this, it'd be an embarrassment to his alias. You see, having an alias like Guide means you're expected to be exceptional at finding locations. It's a name bestowed by the system itself for being remarkably skilled at navigating dungeons. The guide then turns to Dong-hoon and asks if he's nervous. Dong-hoon admits that, yeah, he's a bit on edge. But instead of reassuring him, this bastard of a guide just tells him to stay nervous. Naturally, this leaves Dong-hoon baffled. What kind of comforting advice is that? Then the guide drops the brutal truth. You see, this dungeon has more than just 1 or 2 suspicious things about it. He explains that the Dark Empress, a ranker, isn't telling them to stay alert for no reason. This dungeon is too quiet. The structure is unusually simple, and there's a high chance there won't be any monsters. The reason behind this assumption is that if something lived in this small cave, there would be faint sounds, vibrations, or some sort of activity. The silence suggests a hidden gimmick, something unknown and potentially more dangerous than monsters. Dong-hoon is amazed at the guide's perception. To think he could deduce all of this before even exploring properly, it's truly something else. The guide explains that he's been in the dungeon business for many years, so it's pretty easy for him to figure things out. He then points in a specific direction and tells Dong-hoon to follow him for now and try to find the exit as ordered. Dong-hoon notices that the direction the guide is heading is actually the opposite of where the other hunters are going, but he figures it should be fine. He starts walking with the guide. The guide grows more and more anxious as they move forward. When Dong-hoon asks him why he's feeling this way, the guide explains that there are no traps, no hints, nothing to indicate anything unusual. He even says it feels like his body is getting heavier. He asks Dong-hoon if he's feeling the same way. Our boy admits that he feels chills creeping up his spine. By now he's not sure if they should continue going further. The guide isn't sure either. He admits that this is the first time he's ever felt like this. Not even meeting rankers has made him feel this uneasy. But here, it feels like something ridiculous might be lurking in the shadows. Since Dong-hoon is a necromancer, the guide demands that he summon something, anything, to help with the situation. If things go south, at least they should be able to defend themselves. My guy summons all 5 of his skeletons, and after that he's left with only 50 energy. The guide isn't sure if these ordinary skeletons will be any help and asks our boy if he's got anything better. Annoyed, Dong-hoon admits this is all he's got. That's when they suddenly feel something heavy, like an invisible force pinning them down. They decide to keep moving forward since there's an open area ahead, but our boy isn't convinced that getting there will actually help. The guide isn't sure either, but he senses the presence of several beings. If someone or something is out there, it means the place might be habitable. With no better plan, they start walking further, though the pressure makes every step a struggle. Seeing his master struggle, the mage skeleton decides to cast an air shield around him. But the shield shatters almost immediately, leaving my guy coughing up blood. The pressure is strong enough to destroy the skill the moment it's cast. He notices Kang Sunwook already way ahead of him. Donghoon is not here to die. He wants to live, to become a ranker, and he needs to survive to achieve anything. Then, something unusual happens. A system notification pops up, which states that you have reached the stage, an elderly man with white hair filled with deep resentment. Donghoon has no clue what any of this means. The system, in its usual cryptic way, goes on about with its bullshit. This time, it says that the old man's deep resentment is so strong that icy frost forms in his hair. Finally, it prompts him to enter the room and defeat the old man. The only guess Donghoon can make right now is that the white-haired elderly man must be the boss of this dungeon. Suddenly, he notices a group of people. One of the scrawny, haggard guys looks shocked but also relieved to see hunters have arrived. He quickly asks if they brought a reinforcement team. Donghoon guesses that these guys must be the hunters who tried to avoid the pressure and reach the place as well. The survivors, on the other hand, notice the guide's A-rank badge, and when they see the skeletons, they realize there's also a Necromancer, which confirms it's definitely a rescue team. They all plead with our boy to save them and get them out of there, but first they ask for food or water because they're really thirsty. The guide decides to distribute the emergency food first. Donghoon, on the other hand, is slightly upset that the guide left him behind during the danger, but he figures he has to understand. That's how dungeons work. Once Donghoon hands over the water and supplies, the survivors finally drink and sit down to eat. As they eat, the guide starts questioning them about their circumstances and what happened here. One guy volunteers to speak on behalf of his team, showing his B-rank hunter badge because, among the survivors, he has the highest rank. He starts by revealing that this place is hell. He's been a hunter for some time, but has never encountered such a strange dungeon. What makes it strange is that this place has no exit. From the starting point, no matter which direction you go, the twisted cave always brings them back to this door. Then they were tightly bound by this aura that made it impossible to escape. Ultimately, all they could do was challenge whatever lies beyond that door, and nothing else. But the clear condition here is pretty insane. Apparently there's an elderly man with white hair, filled with deep resentment, and he's impossible to defeat. Even if you're a B-rank hunter, you'll be like an infant before that old man. But the scrawny guy is sure that an A-rank hunter might make a difference, so he asks the guide to fight the old man and get them out of there. However, the guide isn't too confident about it either. Meanwhile, our boy wonders, if the boss is as strong as they say, how is everyone still alive? The survivor explains that the old man doesn't kill people. He just accepts challengers and conducts some sort of test. They don't know the exact details, but he simply subdues them painfully and agonizingly. And if does not see a worthy opponent, he simply throws the challenger out. But before throwing the challenger out, he tells them that they are not fit. That's actually pretty weird. To think there's a dungeon boss who doesn't kill people. Now that they think about it, it's a little strange. Because the old man is, well, an old person, meaning he's still human. This is the first time a dungeon boss has been a human since the world changed. Even Donghoon is shocked to hear this, and he isn't sure if the existence of a human boss is even possible. Whatever the case, they must open that door and complete the mission to find an exit. But our boy doesn't trust Kang Sunwook for this, since he's a hunter specialized in guiding only. Just as he's thinking about it, the Dark Empress arrives, followed by the other team members. Once everyone fills her in on the current situation, she decides to go in right away. Judging by their auras, she can tell that these survivors aren't doppelgangers or traps. It does bother her that the aura coming from the gate is so tense, but she can't just sit around and watch. All the survivors burst into tears of happiness as they hug each other passionately. She commands the porters and survivors to stay here while she takes care of things. Our guy is also feeling quite happy seeing this, because an S-rank awakener stands in a completely different realm from an A-rank. Not only that, she's ranked within the top 1,000 A-rankers. After tying her hair, she decides to go inside and tells everyone to prepare themselves. She grabs the door handle and proceeds to go inside. A while later, we find our boy, being the porter he is, sitting quietly and waiting for the other hunters to return. But right at that moment, the door opens, and the guy with red hair and the guy with glasses are tossed outside like beaten-up trash bags. Heck, even the so-called S-rank Dark Empress has been tossed outside. Our guy is absolutely boggled by what he's seeing. It hasn't even been 10 minutes since they went in, and they've already been thrown out. For an S-rank to be incapacitated this quickly is insane. But it looks like the lady isn't giving up just yet. She commands our boy to hand her an advanced level potion because she wants to go back in. Donghoon is bewildered by the courage she's showing, especially after getting beaten up like that. So he asks if she's sure about going back inside once again. She says yes without a shred of doubt, and explains that the survivors were right. The old man didn't kill her. He just subdued her painfully. He then hands her the potion, and she pops the bottle open with a snap, making it clear she's going to let this old coot know that she is, in fact, fit. The mention of fit triggers a thought in Dong-hoon's mind. He remembers that the term fit is usually only used when a master is seeking a disciple. In that case, the old man's resentment must stem from not finding a suitable talent. After slurping the potion, she tosses the bottle back to our boy and starts walking back inside. And so Soil's infinite challenge began. But every time she entered, she was thrown back with bruises covering her body. There were no results after so many tries. She was just starting to get frustrated and wasn't sure how much longer she could endure this. She has yet to figure out the main motive of this old coot and how this guy is not only a master in swordsmanship, but he's also good with a spear. She doesn't relent and continues this relentless pursuit in order to achieve victory. Meanwhile, our boy just sits there with a tired look on his face. As a day passes, his expression only grows more sour from all the shit that's been happening. 4 days have passed just like that, but she hasn't stopped challenging him. Every time she entered, the old man always had another trick to show her. Not only was he a master in spear and swordsmanship, but that old sucker even knew magic. Meanwhile, Dong-hoon knows they're in really big trouble. Even if Giparang came to help, the situation wouldn't change. He has a feeling that even 2 or maybe 5 rankers might not be enough to defeat the old man. After so many tries, she finally admits that the old man is indeed built different, but that doesn't mean she'll stop challenging him. Her relentlessness and dedication resonate with Dong-hoon, and he can tell that she truly has the mindset of a ranker. But even then, she is unable to clear the dungeon, and the survivors are already starting to struggle. This is just getting frustrated because sitting idle is not an option either. Come to think of it, all the hunters, including the guide, have gone through that door and come back, except for our boy, of course. He starts walking toward them, prompting the lady to ask if something's on his mind, to which the guy states that he wants to try going in as well. Of course, the Dark Empress is bewildered, and the others start mocking our boy. They find it funny that a porter wants to enter a dungeon where even an A rank failed. The guy with red hair even steps toward our boy and sternly tells him that since he's a porter, he'd better act like one and just carry the bags as he's told. He's literally ready to draw his sword if Dong-hoon tries anything bold. Before the situation escalates, the lady breaks the tension and asks Dong-hoon if he wants to challenge the dungeon himself because he doesn't trust her. Dong-hoon denies having such thoughts, prompting the lady to remind him that according to the original contract, he's a porter and can't voice his opinions on dungeon exploration. Of course, our boy is already aware of that. The lady then asks him why, if that's the case, he still wants to challenge it. Dong-hoon reminds her of the old man's words, where he said he was looking for someone fit, so he figured the old man's resentment might be related to finding a worthy disciple. And a worthy disciple doesn't necessarily need to be perfect, they just need potential. If she's catching on, she asks him if he means that the old man wants to make him his disciple rather than defeat him, to which our boy agrees, stating that this may be the hidden clear condition. You see, sometimes dungeons have alternative ways to clear them through hidden pieces. This all finally makes sense to her to some extent, so for a moment, she decides to trust him. But she's still not sure how he plans on becoming the old man's disciple. She asks him if he's sure he has more potential than her or anyone else here. Dong-hoon can feel the stares he's getting because everyone thinks this lowly porter is trying to look down on them. So our boy states that he can't say that he has potential. The lady gets even more upset and asks him if he's now backing off from his words. Dong-hoon starts sweating under her intense gaze and tries to cool her down, but she keeps staring right through him with those piercing cat eyes. He scrambles, then finally responds that it's about pain. He reminds her how everyone else has experienced pain, so he feels like the odd one out here. Besides, she should take a break right now. The lady gives him a suspicious smile and twirls away with a dissatisfied look on her face. Ever since the start, she had a doubt, and she knew it from the beginning. But now her hunch is confirmed. He's definitely a spy. She asks him who he is. She can see that he has the eyes of a wolf on the prowl, so she asks him if he's after the dungeon's treasure, and wonders if he's hoping for some fortuitous encounter during the raid. Dong-hoon is absolutely boggled to see how perfectly she hit the mark. It makes him believe she should have been a fortune teller, not a ranker. How is she able to read someone like him so quickly, just by looking? Eventually, she gives him the green light to go and try, especially since there's no other solution anyway. And she wanted a break, like he said. If it works for her, then so be it. Besides, she's not one to talk, she failed after all. Dong-hoon is bewildered to realize that she's actually willing to let him go, and she further assures him to take his one chance. As you can see, the emergency rations are running out, and the rescue team isn't coming. This means they need to clear this dungeon as soon as possible. Our guy thanks her and bows his head respectfully. With that, he decides to get inside. As soon as he reaches the door, the system prompts him, asking if he wants to challenge the stage by opening the door. Of course, we all know what decision he makes. The door pops open, and the room is filled with darkness, along with the intense aura surrounding the place. The system tells him to defeat the old man. The old man shines brightly to the point that Dong-hoon has to cover his eyes. When he looks ahead, he notices that there's no one there. A force begins to pin Dong-hoon down, and he falls to his knees. The old man seems kind of annoyed that there's no one worthy coming here. First, it was that shabby girl, and now an even more pitiful fellow has arrived. He clicks his tongue as he delivers his judgment. Our boy isn't even worth looking at, and he should just get rid of this piece of crap. The old man's eyes gleam with a dangerous light, and Dong-hoon starts to feel the pressure building over his body. A golden system notification pops up in front of his eyes, telling him that he's facing the memory of a cursed soul. System also announced something about the hidden condition which has been achieved. This is the hidden condition for his cursed Necromancer trait. None of this makes sense to Dong-hoon. Meanwhile, the system continues to spout nonsense about how he has encountered a cursed soul's memory. A Necromancer ultimately commands the dead and encounters cursed souls with strong determination. The system congratulates him for unlocking a hidden skill, which is an S-rank skill known as memory recreation. Dong-hoon is in disbelief at the mention of S-rank skill, and for a moment, he wonders if he's dreaming. The system prompts him again, stating that he's using the skill known as memory recreation, which is an S-rank skill. Dong-hoon has no idea when he started using this skill, but now that he thinks about it, even though the old man said he would get rid of him, the old man hasn't done anything at all. Another system notification pops up, informing him that the system is recreating the memory of the cursed soul, master of all techniques, and he will soon be transported. A flash of light appears again, blinding him. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself in the middle of a blizzard, and standing across from him is the old man. The old man is going on about how there are no suitable candidates in this world, but it's too wasteful to just leave his powers behind. He finds his life quite meaningless. He had worked so hard to reach the level he's at now, but now he's forced to throw it all away. Meanwhile, Dong-hoon looks around in a frantic attempt to scan the area, but everything seems covered in snow. That's when his head begins to throb, and he starts to feel the emotions and memories of the old man. He hears how this old man calls himself a swordsman, spearman, assassin, archer, mage, buffer, healer, and more. He achieved all of this after mastering the flow of ki, and once you got a grip on ki, all techniques become one. Apparently, this old man transcended everyone and lived for a very long time. However, even ki couldn't stop him from aging. Dong-hoon just stands quietly behind the old man and hears him say how drinking cold water feels like swallowing poison. The once light air now feels like it's crushing him, aching to kill him. It's quite painful, agonizing, and he's thirsty. But he can't just die like this, and he wants to pass everything he has to his successor first. Finally, the old man drops to his knees, thinking that all he ever wanted was to find just one disciple to pass his abilities down to. He can't stomach the fact that there's no one with enough talent, and the idea of a single successor feels like nothing more than his meaningless greed. The old man is so desperate to pass down his powers that he's ready to sell his soul just to leave behind his complete self. With that, the old man collapses, and the system announces that the skill known as memory recreation, S rank, has ended. It seems that Dong-hoon has finally figured out what this place actually is. But before he can do anything, he feels that crushing force once again, which is trying to pin him to the ground. The system reveals that the master of all techniques is staring at him. He feels a sharp pain in his chest, but for some reason, a creepy smirk spreads across his face despite all the agony. It seems like he has finally figured things out. The old man addresses him again, asking if Dong-hoon just peered into his soul. Of course, Dong-hoon says yes, barely able to stand under the weight of the force bearing down on him. He's certain that if this old man is indeed looking for a disciple, someone who can inherit his vast power and knowledge, then it has to be him. However, other than finding it somewhat interesting, the old man is sure that Dong-hoon is useless and lacks everything necessary to contain his techniques. He cranks up the pressure even more, leaving Dong-hoon begging for his life. Dong-hoon reminds the old man that if he continues like this, he'll never find a disciple and will remain a ghost forever, unable to resolve his resentment. People will remember him as a stubborn ghost filled with obstinacy and bullheadedness. But the old man is not here to take any crap and gets even more annoyed at this insignificant ant talking so big and feeling so full of himself. To drive his point home, the old man extends his hand, intending to break one of Dong-hoon's legs. But Dong-hoon does his best to resist and tells him to listen first. He reminds him that he's mastered every technique, while the people of this world struggle to master even one in their lifetime. The old man dismisses this as nothing, believing that the world is vast and time is long, so surely there will be another genius like him. But Dong-hoon points out the woman he fought earlier. He breaks it to the old man that the woman from earlier is considered one of the strongest in the world. This catches the old man's attention. He wasn't expecting someone so weak to be considered one of the world's strongest. He questions how she could be one of the strongest with her lowly skills. My guy then challenges this old coot to look into his eyes, because he is determined that the old coot can tell immediately if he's being dishonest. Not surprisingly, the old man can tell that Dong-hoon is not lying, which is equally unfortunate. At that moment, Dong-hoon sees his cue and asks the elder if, since no one meets his standards, why not choose him as his disciple. However, the old man doesn't seem interested in taking him as a disciple. He had already thought of Dong-hoon as insolent, and now he sees him as shameless as well. The old man would rather teach garbage than teach Dong-hoon anything. Dong-hoon counters that the old man doesn't have to teach him anything directly. He then opens his system interface and summons all 5 of his skeletons. The thing is simple. If the old man does not want to choose our boy directly, these skeletons have even more potential to inherit his abilities. To convince the old man further, he points out how these guys don't feel pain, giving them more endurance than anyone else, and making them tougher because they're fearless too. The old man's face remains unreadable. After taking a closer look at these undead, he twirls around in the opposite direction, his presence still pressing down on our boy. The old man finds it amusing that the successor he's been searching for isn't human, but undead. He can definitely see their immense potential. They must have been exceptional warriors in life, and he's always wanted disciples like that. Teaching more than one might be tricky, but the old man is willing to make a compromise. The moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. The system confirms that our boy has finally fulfilled the hidden condition. A blinding light surrounds the area, and once again we're in the middle of snowy mountains. The old man is ready to trust our boy's word, and the determination he sees in his eyes. But he wants our hero to promise that no matter what trials come, he'll inherit everything the old man has to offer, and leave a mark of him somewhere in this world. The system prompts him to convince the old man if he truly wants to claim all of his juicy powers. So, our guy promptly starts throwing out some cheesy lines, making it crystal clear that he won't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and that he'll inherit it all, no matter what. The look on the old man's face clearly states that our boy gets a pass. The system then further confirms that he has indeed successfully cleared the stage. After being accepted as the old man's disciple and clearing the dungeon, Ju Dong-hoon woke up to the sight of the harsh hospital lights. Beside his hospital bed was the Dark Empress herself, Gi Soil. It looks like she's been waiting for him to wake up for a while now. Dong-hoon tried to make sense of his current situation, still groggy from his bizarre experience. Gi Soil formally introduced herself as the Vice Guild Master of the Parang Guild once more, this time with an air of seriousness. She emphasized that she's also known by her alias, the Dark Empress, to intimidate our boy. He already knew all about her. What he can't think of is the reason why she's in his hospital room. After clearing the dungeon, he must have lost consciousness and blacked out. Gi Soil admitted that she was surprised to see Dong-hoon conquer an unclear boss. Who would have thought that a mere porter she picked up on a whim would be the one to do so? Her intense stare would surely freak anyone out. Composing himself, Dong-hoon asked why the Vice Guild Master of a major guild would personally come to find him. As it turns out, she's just curious how he cleared that absurd, unranked dungeon and what rewards he got from doing so. She wanted to know if their theory was right, and Dong-hoon really became the old man's disciple. Her questions are valid. She was supposed to take on the dungeon by herself. From Soil's perspective, some random guy who came along to carry their bags stole the achievement. He reckoned that a more violent and unreasonable ranker might have already beheaded him for stealing their prey. So before he answered her questions, he asked what the news articles were saying about the completion of dungeon exploration. She immediately sensed that he was worried about the exposure, but there was no need for that. They reported that the Parang Guild's advance team cleared the dungeon and had all the survivors sign confidentiality agreements. Dong-hoon beamed with joy after hearing that he wasn't shoved into the spotlight. He lowered his head and sincerely thanked the Dark Empress for not putting him in danger. She was surprised by how mature the porter was. Most hunters would kill for a chance to show off such an impressive achievement to the world. But Dong-hoon is more level-headed than that. For him, safety comes first, above all. She assured him that the reports were also for the sake of protecting the pride of her guild. No one would believe that a porter was the MVP of such a perilous expedition. An E-rank mercenary over a literal ranker. It makes sense. Parang Guild is covering up the results so as not to be embarrassed in front of the world. If he reveals the truth, he might get secretly assassinated for it. It has been 3 whole days since they came out of the dungeon. He has been unconscious for the entire duration. Nevertheless, he got his much-needed fortuitous opportunity thanks to Soil. He knew that babbling about the rewards could potentially endanger him, though. So, he chose to play it safe, and answered that he hasn't figured out what he got out of the clear yet, and he's going to need some time to give a proper response. He pretended to be sick and weak from the experience, hoping that Soil would be convinced. Dong-hoon also assured her that he would not run, as no hunter in the world could possibly escape the eyes of the Dark Empress. Surprisingly, she bought his act and agreed to come back to ask more questions once he sorted things out. And so, she exited the room, and he could finally breathe once more. Life really came at him fast in the past few days. He awakened after 3 years of toiling. He met a ranker and cleared a strange dungeon on top of that. If he ends up on the wrong side of Parang Guild, he'd be toast. On the other hand, this could also be an opportunity to build a good relationship with a powerful organization. Alone in the hospital room, the system prompts him to check the rewards for clearing the dungeon. As soon as he accepted the prompt, he was granted a permanent 20-point increase in his energy. On top of that, he acquired the S-rank skill, Teaching of All Techniques. Looking at his status window, not much has changed. He's still a D-rank cursed necromancer, but his skills have become more stacked. With his 2 new S-rank skills, Memory Recreation and Teaching of All Techniques, it was so insane that he shivered just looking at it on display. He finally understands why veterans are so obsessed with clearing dungeons. The ability to read the memory of the dead, Memory Recreations, looks like a hidden skill. Using this ability to read the old man's memories allowed him to clear the dungeon, but aside from that, he couldn't think of any other application. He's confident that he would find another use for such a thing someday. What's more interesting is the quest reward, Teaching of All Techniques. Its first effect allows him to summon the master of all techniques who dominated the other world for 60 minutes. The old man cannot exert physical force in the real world, and will be limited to just passing on knowledge. Only the user can perceive the grumpy old fart, and the cooldown is set at 24 hours. After a single read through the skill description, Donghoon hopped off the bed and gathered his belongings. He rushed towards his usual open-air training grounds as fast as he could. Donghoon raised his hand and used Teaching of All Techniques, summoning the boss that toyed with everyone it fought. A brilliant light coalesced into the form of an old man. Finally, the master of all techniques has seen the light of day once more. Donghoon smiled and greeted his new master, respectfully calling him sir. As a response, the old man smacked him hard on the head and called him an idiot. An absolute dumbass. After promising to inherit everything with determination, this boy really waited 3 whole days to summon him. The old man was fuming. He accused Donghoon of being lazy and told him that he wouldn't be able to keep up. Of course, Donghoon tried to explain that he just recently regained consciousness, and the first thing he did was summon the master. Another thing, the skill specifically stated that the old fart should be incapable of physically influencing the world. How can he smack Donghoon in the head then? Much to his surprise, his thoughts were clearly broadcast and read by the master. The two of them are now mentally connected, so no thoughts can go unnoticed. Since they've already lost so much time, the old fart is eager to get started with the first day of training immediately. He thought he would just need to summon the skeletons and let the master work on them, but the old man had a different training method in mind. Master wants to find out what to teach Donghoon himself first, as he already largely understands the talent of the skeletons. The only weak point and problem is their summoner. Donghoon did not like the sound of that at all. The old fart asked Donghoon if he knew the reason why he was called the master of all techniques. Back in his heyday, he was given that prestigious nickname after learning and perfecting countless talents to their limits. He already formulated a training regimen for every skeleton, while the rest of his teaching is up to Donghoon to learn and master. Donghoon argued that his talent had already been evaluated as nothing but trash. The old fart got unreasonably angry and ordered him to shut up. Since he's the one who promised to inherit his mastery, he has to stay true to his word. If he can't, he'll just have to try harder until he can. Besides, the old man can use one of his arts to mold trash into an unparalleled genius. To employ that method, it's a good thing he can exert physical influence exclusively on his summoner. The old man is excited to use some of the arts and techniques he created, but never had the chance to use. Hardened meridians can be opened with ki, and the young man's physique can be improved if massaged for 300 days. It will be painful, but that's when Donghoon's tenacity comes in. This is not going the way he expected this encounter to go at all. When he tried to slither out of the deal, the old man reprimanded him to shut up and be grateful. Back in his world, countless geniuses would kill for the chance to learn from the master of all techniques. They all wanted his grand technique of the celestial artisan. It's the art he created in his last years. Donghoon noticed some holes in the old man's reasoning, though. If he can turn trash into a genius, then picking a disciple shouldn't matter much. But for this technique, the master must use his life energy as payment, a steep price to pay. Furthermore, if he changed and increased a boneless disciple's talents, his body would melt and disappear for nothing. But now that he already died and is stuck in a spirit form, the drawback shouldn't exist anymore. So, Donghoon asked why the old man did not take any of the other people who tried to challenge him in the dungeon, and just use the overpowered technique on them. That earned the young man yet another painful punch to the top of his head. That one was for asking stupid questions without properly listening to the master's word. As he previously explained, the grand technique of the celestial artisan is an art that turns trash into genius. It is entirely useless if not used on trash. It's only effective if the target is at the level of food waste. Getting called a food waste as a backhanded compliment was certainly something. Again, the technique won't work on people who aren't totally talentless. Their bodies have already been influenced by other energies, after all. Compared to those with some semblance of power, like the Dark Empress, Donghoon's body is very clean and incredibly weak. While he can summon the dead, his body is horrendously underdeveloped. Not only that, but natural-born geniuses are also more impressive than fabricated ones. So the old man tried his hardest not to go down this route. He originally intended to find a more impressive prospect, but now he's stuck with Donghoon. While his words might be harsh, the young man agreed with every sentiment. Furthermore, the thought of getting stronger alongside his skeletons sounds like a great deal. It's like killing two birds with one bone. So, when the master of all techniques asked him if he was ready, he wholeheartedly responded that he was. His newfound determination was quickly crushed as his agonized screams filled the training grounds. He tried to beg and tap out, but the old fart would not stop. He continuously pounded Donghoon's back with his fists, massaging his upper body with a flurry of blows. They haven't even gotten started properly yet, and he's already making a fuss. As the strange massage ramped up, Donghoon bit his tongue and tried his hardest to endure. If he wants to become a ranker, he must power through the pain. The old man completely battered his body while complimenting his guts and tenacity. Seeing as he's adjusting to the pace, the master increased the intensity even higher. Donghoon had never experienced pain like this before. It was so bad that he actually gained a C-rank pain-resistant skill from tanking the agony. The skill also has the potential for further growth. With one final slap and shove, Donghoon coughed and collapsed onto the floor. The massage felt like forever, but it's finally done now. The old fart praised him for gritting his teeth and prevailing like a champ. Despite having trash talents, it's rare for anyone to be so resilient. If he continues with his desire to become stronger and maintain the mental strength to fight through constant torture, he might not be a lost cause after all. Beaten and broken, Donghoon asked if they were done for the day. Unfortunately, the summoning duration still has about 30 minutes left. The old man picked him up by his shoulder, not letting him rest on the floor after enjoying such a precious massage. The undead battalion is waiting for their leader to join the actual training. Donghoon surrendered to his fate with tears rolling from his eyes. This is his new normal now, and it makes him seriously consider ending it all. You see, the foundation of all professions is physical strength. It seems like the skeletons can build that strength even without muscles. The old man's first proper teaching is proper posture, the horse riding stance he frequently uses throughout his life. Human muscles are concentrated in the lower body, so making a solid base is the key to building strength and stability. Considering that his body had just been battered badly in the guise of a massage, Donghoon was struggling to maintain his posture. To make matters worse, the old fart singled him out for his lack of talent, but he immediately praised his tenacity once more. The master believes that the summoner should not be weaker than his summoned beings, so he must work doubly hard. But Donghoon could already feel that his muscles were torn and would need some time to recover. He couldn't help but feel like posture training was pointless and just added torture. Nevertheless, he persevered like he always did, and collapsed as soon as the master ended the session. That's it for today. For his assignment, Donghoon must do basic physical training every morning before summoning the master for the real deal. And so, the master of all techniques has been unsummoned, leaving the young man glued to the ground, trying to regain his breath. His skeletons looked at him with utmost concern. When Donghoon finally caught his breath, he turned to Bony One. He asked the skeletal swordsman to carry him. He can't even move a single muscle after the torturous first day. The very next day, Donghoon's first destination was the mercenary agency. As soon as he entered, his agent asked him to come to the front desk quickly. In the lobby were the last dungeon survivors that they rescued. The guys stood up and walked up to Donghoon, calling him Mr. Necromancer. They noticed that he seems to have changed a bit. He looks a lot more muscular and better looking. They weren't bullshitting either. Just one day after the massage and the training from the old master, he had already bulked up by a noticeable degree. His shoulders have also grown broader, and his skeletal structure has been altered. It's hard to believe that a 30-minute excruciating massage could lead to such significant changes. Anyway, he can't think of any reason why these hunters in front of him would come and look for the porter. One of the guys formally introduced himself as Kang Jae-ho, a C-rank hunter. He claims that Donghoon's actions and attitude back in the dungeon left quite an impression on him. Since they made it out alive thanks to Donghoon, he tracked the porter down to team up once more. To be polite, Donghoon also formally introduced himself, fully disclosing that he's just an E-rank necromancer mercenary. Kang Jae-ho got straight to the point and proposed a business deal regarding another dungeon. They've secured permission to take on a well-known C-rank dungeon, and they want to hire Donghoon. They heard from the agent that he's struggling financially and is in dire need of a job, so it should be perfect. Dong-hoon looked at his agent like he wanted to murder the guy. All this dude does is sell him out to secure any job possible. He even aired out poor Dong-hoon's financial situation. But it's also true that he needs cash and fast. Jae-ho warned him that the dungeon they'll be taking on is a tricky one, even for a C rank. Still, it's worth a try. With some luck, they can reap some pretty valuable rewards. Recently, some parties even got a power potion to drop. Hearing about a power potion immediately raised Dong-hoon's interest. You see, a power potion is an incredibly rare dungeon drop, regardless of rank. It's a high-level potion known to cure any curse or illness. Jae-ho was pleased to see that Dong-hoon seemed interested in his proposition. He also added that they did not want to hire Dong-hoon as a porter, but as a full-pledged party member. As for the payment, he won't be getting cash up front anymore since he won't just be carrying supplies. He'll be entitled to a fair share of the profit for loots. Hearing that he's finally being treated like a real hunter bewildered him. In his mind, he calculated the money he could make if a power potion were to actually drop. The market price for one of those things would be about 50 million won. In a party of 6, that would be roughly 833 million won each. He can't even dream of making that much money with his old hustle. The promise of riches completely clouded his mind. Jae-ho asked if he was in, and he immediately said yes. He's tired of being a porter anyway. Besides, he's curious to see the power of his evolved skeletons in real action, and this can be a good chance for that. Jae-ho finalized the deal and gave Dong-hoon the location for the hunt on Monday. After securing another job, his next stop is the training grounds. While the skeletons practiced their respective regimens, Dong-hoon was asking his master for permission to join the dungeon run on Monday, explaining that hunters grow stronger through those dungeons. The old fart called the idea laughable. He sees Dong-hoon as a novice who hasn't even grasped the basics yet. He's practically trying to run before he can walk. Rushing or not, he still needs to earn a living somehow. Eventually, the old fart caved and agreed. He prefers giving his soul disciple some practical experience over studying theories anyway. Dong-hoon lit up as soon as he heard that. The master might have permitted him to take the job, but skipping training will not be tolerated. Seeing him recoil, the old fart insisted that Dong-hoon could just summon him inside the dungeon. With that matter agreed upon, the old man raised his hands and beckoned his poor discipline to come closer and receive today's massage. All color drained from Dong-hoon's face. One day in, and he's already traumatized. And so, he underwent the harrowing rub-down, beat-down once more. Dong-hoon once again becomes a victim of the old man's gruesome massage training. At this point, his body is shaking from the exercise. Exhausted and on the brink of tears, this pitiful man realizes that he's just going to die for the sake of training. It's true that he did acquire a new skill called pain resistance, just like his system told him. It has a secondary effect of numbing his senses when the pain is extremely high, and if not for this skill, he would have been dead or gone completely insane. Grateful for having survived the old man's torture, Dong-hoon is looking forward to helping his skill evolve in order to make him more resilient. The elder applauds for his durability so far, not knowing that our boy is barely surviving this exercise. Unfortunately for our boy, the old fart wants to ramp up the pace of the training from tomorrow, since Dong-hoon is managing just well against the current level of training. Hearing this, bro does a double take and asks if he heard things right. As for the bonehead skeletons, they're working on their swings too. The elder tasks everyone in the group to gather all at once. They make their way with their bony little feet. The elder points to a nearby spot and instructs the group to assume a squatting position like last time. He also claims that as part of their dealing program, he's going to teach each of the skeletons a new technique every day. Dong-hoon is surprised by this. The elder points to one of the boneheads and picks him to be the first target. Now Dong-hoon's summons already know how strict the old man's training is. Poor bonehead gives a worried look to his master. The swordsman is up first, and Dong-hoon explains that it doesn't really have any special skills besides swinging a damn sword. The elder is okay with that because he wants to develop the swordsman's techniques as part of their training. He commands the skeleton to go ahead and try swinging its sword. Bonehead 1 is comforted by his master, but in reality even Dong-hoon knows that his summon is going to persevere through hell just to survive the old fart's sword training. The poor skeleton fidgets. Despite being an undead, it is still afraid of what the elder is going to do to it. Anyway, the training begins with the skeleton swinging its sword. Next, the elder addresses Dong-hoon by his name because he's got a different plan for him in mind. First, he asks a philosophical question to gauge Dong-hoon's current understanding of swordsmanship. He wants to know what swordsmanship means to him. In typical fashion, Dong-hoon provides an answer like any other person would. He thinks swordsmanship is just a mere technique deployed with a sword. Predicting his rather simple response, the elder isn't impressed. However, he also thinks that defining swordsmanship like that is the best way to think about it. He seconds Dong-hoon's thoughts and agrees that it's nothing more than the skill of handling a particular sword. Tossing a stick right in front of him, the old master instructs him to pick it up. Dong-hoon thinks about it for a second, realizing that this master doesn't just want the skeletons to inherit his techniques. In fact, he wants Dong-hoon to be his disciple too, and inherit techniques like his summons. With a stick in his hand, the old master instructs Dong-hoon to wield the weapon in stance. Although confused by his instruction, he gets into position anyway. The older man reminds him not to complicate the process of wielding a weapon, and recommends that he manipulate the sword in whatever way he feels right. Dong-hoon finds a comfortable position for himself and is ready to take a swing. The master instructs him to swing a bunch of times as fast and hard as he possibly can. Dong-hoon follows his words and begins with awkward strokes and swings in the air. While letting out a small chuckle, the old man is impressed by Dong-hoon's performance. But his reaction seems half-assed, because in his mind, Dong-hoon threw terrible swings. He starts to question the credibility of the old master. The elder explains by pointing to Dong-hoon's grip on the stick. His thumb and the rest of the fingers are in the correct position. Regarding his swinging posture, he isn't doing the worst. The older man describes how he swung from one particular direction to another. He also comments how he has yet to teach Dong-hoon anything about swordsmanship, yet even now, he's swinging comfortably in what he believes is the best way to deliver a slash. According to the old master, one's perception of a slash is the result of the experiences they had throughout their life. Effectively speaking, Dong-hoon was putting his entire life into the swings he had just now. Hearing this complex explanation, the low-ranker wonders if he was really doing that. The elder amusingly asks him a question. He wonders what would happen if a person added proper strength and speed to Dong-hoon's slashes. Being the idiot that he is, our boy spaces out without really understanding the point of the question he was just asked. The old master tells him that any slash, no matter how terrible, can become incredibly powerful with the addition of strength and speed. Those two factors will never change as they're a part of reality. Finally understanding his point, Dong-hoon grips his stick and reaches an enlightenment. The old master wants him to create his version of a slash and then amplify its power. Glad that he's getting the hang of things, the old master turns around and asks him a second question. He wonders what would happen if a slash was repeated millions of times and eventually reached its full potential. Demonstrating what he means, the old master picks up his sword and decides to showcase what a true slash refined to perfection truly looks like. Dong-hoon's eyes widen as the master initiates his first swing. A clean cut through the air before dishing out a few more swings that are so perfect, even Dong-hoon is left speechless. His master doesn't want him to dwell on theory, and instead prioritizes that he focus on improving his slashing technique. After he's capable of doing that, his normal slashes will become the standard for his technique. Dong-hoon understands now. He knows that it's fine if his swinging posture looks incredibly wonky and trash. After all, nobody is going to care about how he swung his sword, since it's his slashing technique and he can use it his own way. The system informs him that he's just acquired a new skill called Rend. It's the representation of his slashing skill and has the potential to improve. The scene cuts to the Parang Guild's headquarters where the guildmaster is doing work. This man is ranked 58th in the entire world and nicknamed the Fine Bow for his exceptional archery skills. Gi Parang sees Soyul, his little sister, who has strangely come to talk to him out of nowhere. Even Gi finds it weird and points it out. Soyul addresses how she's felt worried about a particular affair, surprising her brother. She gets to the point and questions if a D-rank hunter can suddenly unleash powers beyond an A-ranker. Gi points out the odd nature of the question, since it's never usually addressed, but Soyul is looking for a quick answer. He claims that it does take a while to hone one's skill to become very strong. According to him, an anomaly like that shouldn't be possible. Even if they did, then that would mean the D-ranker probably hid their ability and acted like a false ranker from the beginning. However, Soyul knows for a fact that the porter she met wasn't hiding his skills. G decides to take her observation for a word of fact, since Soyul's incredibly sensory skills allow her to gauge the strength of any ranker with ease. After all, she possesses the incredibly strong search skill. Following that, G questions what's really bothering her. Tensed up to address the matter, Soyul internalizes that HSE hasn't even reported to her brother about the dungeon she went through with the porter, because she can't swallow the fact that she was defeated so easily by the dungeon's boss. The old master inside the dungeon, his powers were remarkable, and beyond that of any hunter she had ever met. It makes no sense that a good-for-nothing D-ranker was able to overcome the impossible, the same situation that she failed against many times. She recalls their first encounter being a strange impression of him, and due to her personal curiosity, she offered him to become a part of the team for the raid. But the mere fact that he cleared the dungeon trumps everything. Dong-hoon already expressed that he's prepared to pick apart the details of what happened once he's ready, so Soyul is prepared to wait. G points out her silence and questions why she's smiling all of a sudden, despite her tense expression only a moment ago. He's become curious of his sister's reactions, especially since she has cared about nothing in this world besides holding her weapon and becoming the best. An embarrassed Soil decides not to reveal the dungeon situation and gets up to leave. As she's leaving, Ji teases her saying that it's okay to talk about it with her own brother. Let's explore Dong-hoon's side of things again. The party he was supposed to go on a raid with were waiting for him until he arrived. The fabled Necromancer kept his promise and showed up after receiving the details of the dungeon through text. Now, the funny thing about this dungeon is that it's ranked at level C. Their main objective is to eliminate the monsters as well as the boss. It doesn't seem like a complicated or difficult dungeon raid, which is exactly the suspicious part. Dong-hoon confirms that he's already worn sunscreen and brought ample amounts of water for the desert dungeon. Suddenly he notices something odd. His friend told him that there would only be a bunch of people, but it seems like there are more than before. There are also 2 girls who don't seem to be hunters. His friend explains that he invited 2 low-level porters and that it won't be an issue since he's already covered the cost. Dong-hoon is relieved and doesn't question it any further. He thinks it's reasonable to have porters to collect the valuables inside the dungeon. Since he's going up against a C-rank dungeon, he's a little uneasy, but ultimately thinks it's fine since his skeletons are capable of defeating an orc, which is supposed to be the highest D-rank monster. The party enters inside the gate. Now inside, they're met with a desolate desert, just like the details mentioned. The system warns him that he's going to endure a difficult environment, lowering his base stats by 10%. It's much hotter than the group initially expected. They'll have to endure it no matter what. Despite their reactions, Dong-hoon doesn't seem to be having a difficult time. He thinks he should be alright. After all, to him, it's nothing compared to the daily massages he receives from the old fart. Activating his summoning skill, Dong-hoon brings out the Bonehead party, each equipped with their weapons and ready to rumble. The Boneheads further add to the volume and size of the group. The other rankers are surprised to notice that his summons seem way stronger than last time. The leader of the party gains their attention and expresses the different types of monsters they'll be dealing with. Scorpions and snakes are on the list, scaring away a bunch of the hunters. But it's nothing to fear since they're no more than C-rank monsters at best. The leader explains that they need to follow instructions closely and do as they're told, as everything will be fine aside from that. And so they begin their agonizing walk through the desert, but it's already taking an effect on the poor rankers. The leader brings their group to a stop for a strange reason. After all, there's nothing in sight, so it doesn't make sense why they stopped. Suddenly one of them notices something. A scorpion's stinger bursts from under the ground and a ton of them come out to attack the humans. Preparing their swords, the hunters retaliate with their weapons and cut past the C-rank monsters. The leader reminds the group to focus and work on the task at hand. The group assumes battle position to confront the monsters. Dong-hoon witnesses the scene from afar. They're all going at it like crazy against the desert scorpions. He compares them to be just as powerful as the orc he faced. Dong-hoon calls out Bonehead number 5, the mage, and instructs it to cast an air shield around him. Heeding to its master's words, the skeleton creates a shield. Dong-hoon addresses the rest of them and raises his cane, ordering them to destroy the scorpions. Dong-hoon has secured his own well-being with the skeletons. The shield Bonehead plants his shield on the ground and activates the low-level skill Taunt. Dong-hoon orders the rest to defeat the monsters. The scorpions have been provoked and they're all targeting Bone 4. The swordsman skeleton raises his sword and connects its first attack. However, the sword can't seem to pierce the scorpion's thick defense. Still, the attacks aren't completely useless, so Dong-hoon prioritizes his summons to repeatedly attack the monster to eventually defeat it. The skeletons keep on rampaging with a flurry of their attacks. The spearman finally pierces its skin with its precise strike. Witnessing the scene at hand, Dong-hoon is delighted to notice that his summons are way stronger than he assumed. Even the group leader has come to impressively state how Dong-hoon's summons have become stronger. Dong-hoon claims that it's nothing noteworthy and he's just taking care of the trash since the main group already handled the scorpions. The leader pokes fun at him for being so humble like that. Dong-hoon internalizes that he's still a little suspicious about the way this guy is acting. Then there's another fact. The rest of the hunters seem so powerful that Dong-hoon's presence in the group wasn't really necessary at all. He's just an E-ranker after all, but they seem to know that he received the rewards from the high-level dungeon last time. It's only because of the confidential contract with the Parring Guild that none of them can address the topic or discuss the details with him. The only way to make a person talk and answer their questions is via dungeon exploration, where there isn't any kind of surveillance or monitoring for them to worry about, and it cuts out all troubles of evidence. Accidents are known to happen inside the dungeons. It's no wonder our boy is getting devious side-eyes from the rest of the group, as if they're all secretly judging him. However, it's just a theory, so Dong-hoon doesn't want to think too much about it. While he's thinking that, the leader of the party smiles, because he knows things are going as planned. Anyway, they eventually get to the temple of the ancient desert Scorpion King. The system informs him that in order to break the seal, one person is needed as a sacrifice. The sacrificial altar requires 2 offerings. Now this is the scary part. Remember the 2 F-rank porters that were brought along? They're eligible to become a part of the offering, which is the scary part. Dong-hoon is shocked because this was conveniently left out in the dungeon details. The group leader's men act like they weren't expecting this at all. These assholes are in the full mood to use the porters as their chosen offerings at the altar. Frightened for her life, one of the porters requests the party leader's assistance. But this bastard is just like the others. He thinks it's suitable to use the two offerings as their plan. Horrifyingly and without remorse, he orders both of them to go up and become the victims. The porters lash out against the mercenaries for being crazy, but their leader doesn't care at all and recommends they just accept their way of doing things. Faced with this unfairness, they question why he's doing this. Then it hits them. It was this despicable man's plan from all along. He lets out an evil laugh, reminding them of the higher pay he promised to low-level porters like them. Bringing out his weapon, the mercenary thinks it's only necessary to pay a high price for receiving a high reward. Dong-hoon has been quietly staring at the scene. He thinks that if the party leader is acting like this without worry, it means he's more than confident that he can defeat Dong-hoon even if he tried interfering. The party leader commands them to just go up and offer themselves as a sacrifice. But one man steps up to their rescue. Our boy Dong-hoon has picked his side and decides to go against the group. The party leader is a little surprised that he turned out to be a pure-of-heart person, even mocking Dong-hoon for playing a hero. Our boy doesn't care for insults and demands to know his goal. After all, there's a reason he was brought into the dungeon in this elaborate plan. The party leader is glad that he's not as clueless as he looks, while Dong-hoon gets pissy and demands an explanation. The man decides to get straight to the point. He wants to know about what happened with the high-level dungeon, and he had no way of knowing how, so he happily manipulated him into entering the dungeon. Surprisingly, he promises Dong-hoon that they don't have an objective of killing him or fighting him. There's a reason they revealed their true self, and it's because they wanted Dong-hoon to pick a side. If he joins them, then he'll have to spill information regarding the high-level dungeon raid, even promising him to share the rewards of the dungeon. Dong-hoon thinks it's a crazy deal coming from a bunch of lunatics who are ready to risk the lives of others for their own benefit. It's like an evil villain offering you to join their group. Dong-hoon is already hell-bent on his answer, which is an elaborate "fuck you." Dong-hoon doesn't give a damn and asks his skeletons to take care of the mess for him. They rain down a bunch of arrows, which are all swiped by the group leader with his swift reactions. The man is impressed with his answer, but he still thinks Dong-hoon will surely come to regret the decision he just made. Our boy stands with his position and explains that he doesn't value criminals as people to trust. The Bonehead Squad go heavy on the assault. The swordsman alone is giving a tough time to their leader. The man mocks him for believing that he stands a chance against him simply because he became stronger. Still, Dong-hoon is standing around free as his undead summons are taking care of the mess. The C-rank hunter is stronger than his expectations because he's close to a B-ranker in skill. Even still, Dong-hoon thinks it's better that way. The hunter smiles at the undead, mocking Dong-hoon for believing that he's the only one he's got to worry about. After all, there's a reason these lunatics end up exploring random ranked dungeons. Sensing the man's bloodlust, Dong-hoon alerts his swordsman. He even feels the stinging pain as the hunter manages to attack one of his summons. The hunter laughs as one assassin materializes from out of thin air. This guy is the real problem they should be worrying about, since he's an A-rank assassin from the Shadow Lurker group. The assassin turns to ask if this dude is really the same guy who cleared the high-level dungeon not even Gi Soil could. Dong-hoon is looked at like a weakling, but what he's really worried about is the presence of an A-rank hunter, as if things weren't the worst for him already. There's no way out of this mess, and while he lasted for a couple of while against B-rank hunters, this guy will prove to be really troublesome with his intervention. Suddenly, one of the porters decided to help out Dong-hoon. They're really sorry he has to face unnecessary pain and risk his life for their sake. Looking at their sad and innocent expressions, Dong-hoon wonders why they have to go through something so cruel and become the sacrifice. The situation frustrates him, and in a way, only strengthens his resolve to save the porters. Even if the A-rank assassin is standing before his summons, Dong-hoon is prepared to do whatever it takes, especially because he's got a cheat code. Bro pulls up his master who is so strong that even A-rankers are nothing to him. Activating the skill, he calls forth his master, but the assassin and other B-rankers seem to take this matter lightly. The old man assesses the situation and claims that he predicted this would happen. Dong-hoon is in a tight spot and wants immediate advice. But even his master is like, "This one is on you, because you're definitely getting squashed by these guys." Dong-hoon is begging him to give him a hand, since his death would mean he won't be able to succeed in his master's goal either. The elder doesn't care, and believes that he should be the one who should be annoyed with him instead. After all, despite his capabilities of mastering every technique, he can't overcome the impossible. The assassin takes it nicely with Dong-hoon and simply asks what he gained from the dungeon. Dong-hoon comes to a stop and realizes that these guys are actively looking for the reward he obtained from the dungeon. When he understands that, he realizes that there just might be a way out. All of this is just a means to intimidate him and become the one to control the situation. After all, they'll face much trouble if he doesn't share what he found. The elder reads his thoughts and realizes what his disciple is about to pull off. Dong-hoon gains their interest by talking about the reward. The assassin confirms that he's just interested in hearing about the reward, the same reward not even the bitch Soil couldn't accomplish. Deciding to spill the beans, our boy claims that he's got no options facing an A-rank hunter. The assassin puts his weapons aside, believing that Dong-hoon is making the correct choice here. The trash necromancer claims that the only way he's going to tell the assassin is if he takes care of the B-rank hunters who betrayed him, because he's so angry and hateful of them that he isn't going to talk until he beats them. Saying that, Dong-hoon prepares his boneheads and asks the assassin's opinion on the deal. While physically peeved by this offensive offer, the assassin thinks for a second. While Dong-hoon claims that he suffers from a severe case of his pride, and he can't glance over what his fellow hunters just did to him. Unable to parse through his plan, the assassin questions his motive. Dong-hoon waves his hand and reassures the assassin that there's just no way for him to escape, and even if he was plotting something suspicious, he would immediately be caught by the A-rank hunter. The assassin agrees to his persuasive remark. Now it's the B-rank hunters who are on the back foot, because Dong-hoon has just convinced their best weapon to his side. He expresses how he's already prepared to die. After all, there's just no way to survive the wrath of the shadow lurkers. The B-rank leader gets agitated hearing his every word. Dong-hoon claims that he just wants to kill them, and then he's ready to meet any fate. And if the assassin can't accept this deal, then he's fine with his life being taken anyway. He even threatens to end his own life with one of his bonehead swords. It's funny because you can literally see him being scared shitless, as well as the bonehead. The assassin stops him from taking such a step, and even shuts down the B-ranker leader. He's prepared to give Dong-hoon 30 minutes to handle them, but in case he pulls off something stupid, then he promises to torture Dong-hoon a fate worse than death. It's a terrifying offer, but it's the only chance our boy needed. Dong-hoon is given 30 minutes to get his business done. The situation has turned in the favor of him, and against the bastards who betrayed him. The B-ranker leader questions if he can truly defeat him, but our boy is simply confident in the Bonehead Squad to take care of things for him. The elder is glad that his disciple created a unique setting for him, and now even offers to intervene in the battle. He wants Dong-hoon to use this as a practical training experience and asks what will be done with the assassin in mind. There's the obvious fact that if Dong-hoon doesn't preserve his strength for him in the end, he'll end up completely exhausted. The elder confirms that he's got to preserve strength, and he's prepared to lend him a strategy to be used against his enemies. Dong-hoon orders the Bonehead Squad to take down the B-rank party. They unleash their coordinated attack upon the shitheads. The skeletons are evenly matched in combat. The arrows are proving to be troublesome for the B-rank leader. To top it off, the mage Bonehead decides to activate the fireball spell, unleashing an explosive fire attack upon those poor souls. Even the hunters are shocked that skeletons can somehow learn spells and use magic now. Bonehead 1 with his sword advances full force to combat the leader. His tiny little daggers are no match for his powerful slashes. To the point the daggers are broken, cornering him further. The skeleton kicks him with a very strong forward kick. The assassin observing the scene notes how every single movement of these monsters are precise. He can't believe it, but Dong-hoon is actually taking the upper hand in the fight. Suddenly, the A-rank assassin senses something. He can't believe that he's sensing a presence at the dungeon entrance when they should be on the lookout. Dong-hoon stands before the defeated B-rank scumbag. Now with no other options, he begs for his life like a pathetic dog. The elder thinks that it was an easy fight but gained him good experience. The actual combat will begin when he faces the assassin who is watching them. The elder thinks he's overestimating his capabilities, since it will take everything in his arsenal to bring down a threat like that. With resolute confidence, our boy shouts that he's already placed it on the line. Then he instructs Bonehead 1 and suddenly senses the presence of a person drawing near from afar. The elder expresses his worries because someone just as strong as the assassin has entered the dungeon. The elder insults his disciple for failing to plan ahead of things. Dong-hoon confirms that he doesn't really have any special tactics prepared for this situation. He's in a pinch and definitely won't be able to get out of this rut. A weakling of a hunter who blames himself for being overconfident in a gamble. Dong-hoon's confidence flickers while the B-ranking scumbag laughs in his face, because now he really doesn't have a chance. After all, they came with more than just one shadow lurker. Dong-hoon feels afraid and contemplates the option of running despite how hopeless it seems. However, it seems the second assassin came here to inform his friend about Gi Soil's sudden dungeon entrance. Dong-hoon is utterly shocked by what he heard. He takes a second to digest the fact that Soil has come to his aid, but it doesn't make any sense. Even so, the assassins have to leave no matter what, since they'll have no chance of beating her if they're caught. Saying so, they disappear into thin air, once again leaving the B-ranker in despair as he calls out for his brother. Dong-hoon is pleasantly surprised on the other hand, as he wasn't expecting them to run away in fear. Soil stands just outside the dungeon entrance, contemplating if she should really be doing this. She came here trailing Dong-hoon. Soil was capable of tracking him down using the pairing guild's network, but still feels like she's doing something wrong. She knows that Dong-hoon already promised her that he'd reveal everything when the time is right. So instead of joining the dungeon, she decides to wait and see what happens. As for the scumbags inside, they're getting the absolute shit beat out of them. I'm talking about getting bitch slapped left and right. Their leader is hell-bent on his survival and sets his sight on the porters, because he's ready to throw everything down the line for his own survival. Dong-hoon sees him preparing for some other strategy, since there's no way he can beat him in a direct battle. That's why he's targeting the porters. He alerts the bonehead to attack him before he's able to pull something off. Without hesitation, the undead slashes the man's arm clean off. Now that's what I'm talking about. Dong-hoon is doing this because he knows he wouldn't have been spared if their positions were switched. So he doesn't feel the need to forgive the bastard groveling in front of him. The same goes for the rest of the clowns. Frustrated in despair, the man cusses him out and tries to put everything in his power to tackle Dong-hoon. Sensing the need to act, the skeleton slashes his leg clean off, taking away his ability to walk and making him endure even more pain. Dong-hoon stands indifferent before the man, who is smacking the ground in his anger, lamenting how things turned out. Dong-hoon draws near him and reminds the scumbag that he's the one who betrayed him, not the other way around. With no options left, the B-ranker begs to be killed, but our boy has a tasteful stage prepared for him. He coldly reminds this guy that he's not getting an easy death even if he wants it. The wailing man pleads to be killed, but Dong-hoon's skeleton simply grabs his arm and begins dragging him to the temple. He's tossed in the place of the offerings. The same goes for another one of the B-rankers, since they require 2 living hunters to challenge the boss. He cusses him out as the sacrificial conditions are fulfilled at last. If this didn't happen, Dong-hoon would have prioritized exiting the dungeon without clearing. However, with the betrayal he faced inside, he's ready to hand them the fate they deserve. The altar accepts the 2 human offerings Dong-hoon intends to avenge the people who wronged him. With the conditions met, the seal is broken. The bodies of the hunters offered as sacrifice disappear into nothingness. Despite their betrayal, Dong-hoon wishes them to live a better life if they're ever reborn. Come to think of it, he can't figure out what's taking Soil so long to arrive, since her mere presence scared away the assassins. If not for her, he would have been dead by now. So it's a good thing she came. The thought of fighting 1 A-ranker is impossible as it sounds, and then 2 would have been double the difficulty. Dong-hoon would have become the sacrifice for sure. The ground rumbles with the fulfillment of the sacrifices. The ancient Scorpion King is unleashed as a gate opens up. Its mere rage terrifies the porters, and even stun the skeleton summons. Their stats are automatically nerfed by a staggering 20%. Dong-hoon reflects that his upcoming battle has to be a tough one. The porter worriedly asks if they're going to be okay. He claims that he's unsure about the outcome, but it's still better than confronting the shadow lurkers. The porters agree while Dong-hoon takes a second to come to his senses. He thinks his training will pay off, and his nagging master is there to question if he needs his help to beat the boss. It's a joke after all, since the elder thinks his disciple should die if he can't even beat a boss like that. Dong-hoon is offended by his nagging, while the elder decides to take his leave, putting our boy in more despair than before. The duration of the skill came to an end after all, much to Dong-hoon's annoyance. What's more is that he sees the enraged giant scorpion rushing full speed to kill him. Poor guy realizes that he's going to have to figure things out himself and beat the scorpion without help. Dong-hoon suddenly realizes that the attack is coming from underneath the ground. He tells the mage skeleton to activate air shield again. As for the rest, they're told to assume different positions and prepare for battle. Prioritizing his own safety, Dong-hoon hides behind the shield bonehead. As the archer bonehead is taking aim, the giant scorpion emerges from under the ground with its bellowing size. It subverted Dong-hoon's expectations completely, ignoring him and targeting the other skeletons. This means that the boss has some level of intelligence. The giant scorpion visually doesn't seem any different from its smaller counterparts. The monster roars as Dong-hoon activates bonehead number 4 to attack. The creature uses its special taunting skill to forcefully make the boss its own target. The Scorpion King redirects its attack to the shield bonehead, raging at him full speed with its rushing attack. The attack finally connects as bonehead 4 blocks it, surprising Dong-hoon with its durability. This allows Dong-hoon to form a counterattack of his own. He judges his options and calls each skeleton to attack at once. Without stopping, they all lunge forth to attack the beast. Arrows strike its skin. Fire wreaks havoc on the monster's body. The swordsman and spearmen also jab the creature with their repeated attacks. Dong-hoon isn't looking for a weakness and isn't interested in discovering one. He thinks no one can survive such a brutal numbers advantage. Or so he thought, because the scorpion is quick on the draw and whips its powerful stinger to combat all skeletons at once. They're pushed away, and while it seems difficult to beat the monster, Dong-hoon is glad that his summons are somewhat capable in dealing damage. It's visible from the injuries sustained by the Scorpion King's body. Dong-hoon orders them to lay down their lives and relentlessly attack no matter what. He also assesses how many energy points he has left and realizes that 50 will be enough to beat the boss. Dong-hoon is confident that he'll just keep on summoning them over and over, making them invincible in this fight. Bonehead 1 is crushed, and like clockwork, Dong-hoon calls him to the field again. It consumes 10 energy points, so he's only got a handful of summonings left. The Scorpion King is met with the relentless attacks of the Bonehead squad again. Bonehead 1 and 2 are the first to attack. The swordsman capably slices off the creature's stinger with its powerful slash. Now that the Scorpion King has lost its precious stinger, the rest of the undeads leap on top to deal brutal attacks, piercing its skin. So far so good. Dong-hoon has just defeated the boss monster on his own, but it has left him completely exhausted. After so many summonings, his energy points are only 10. The battle could have gone either way if the Scorpion King was more durable. In any case, all of his monsters receive adequate buffs, increasing their level for clearing the stage. With their stats and skills raised, Dong-hoon is glad that he acquired this much from the boss. The system offers him a notification to retrieve the Scorpion King's venom gland. It's an item, so there's no reason to reject it. Dong-hoon happily accepts as the object materializes in his hand. As he inspects the object, Dong-hoon wonders if it's a simple ingredient. The system explains that the effect of the creature's poison rests inside the item. There are actually 20 types of poisons that could be used to make equipment or skills. Suddenly, one of the boneheads alerts its boss. Bonehead 3 reacts to the venom gland, allowing the system to fulfill a hidden condition. Dong-hoon can now make poison arrows thanks to the skin ingredient he just obtained. It wasn't even in his wildest dreams that a skill could be activated by meeting certain conditions like that. He now understands why the Dark Lord loves dungeons because of their drops. Dong-hoon immediately accepts the skill Poison Arrow, further strengthening the powers of Bonehead 3, who has learned the skill in his place. The desert stage is cleared with the defeat of the monster, and a clearance reward is promised to the hunter. Dong-hoon finds himself transported just outside the dungeon, proving that they conquered it successfully. The porters happily sing and dance in joy now that they managed to survive thanks to the help of this lousy necromancer. Dong-hoon is happy for them and advises them not to accept jobs for the price alone. Saying their farewells, they leave. With that settled, Dong-hoon is eager to check the dungeon's reward in his hand. The system notifies him that he's received another unique item called the Trace of the Desert. Dong-hoon observes the item in his hand as it materializes into a golden key. Further information regarding the key is provided. It can unlock the dungeon called Ancient Desert, and it's also bound to Dong-hoon. He contemplates if it's supposed to be a linked dungeon of some kind. While he wants someone to fill in the information for him, there's no one around. Except Soil, who suddenly greets him with her presence. She tells him that she was looking forward to his explanation, since he's already exploring dungeons. She was also afraid that he might just go on avoiding her forever. Bro is dead nervous, and even his skeletons can see that. He wonders if offering the truth would be ideal in this situation, or if he should make a false story. But the risk of that is that she'll end up detecting his lies. The Dark Empress is the last person he wants to make an enemy out of, so our boy simply swallows his fate and decides that it's best to spill the beans. There's also the fact that he's a novice hunter who doesn't have anything going for him. It might help him establish a strong connection to one of the best rankers all around. Letting out a breath, Dong-hoon decides to confess. He recalls how she was interested in knowing how he cleared the dungeon as well as the reward he obtained. Dong-hoon is prepared to say everything for one condition. Soil is all ears, up until he requests her to protect him until he can become even stronger. It's an odd condition, which prompts her to ask if he's supposed to pay some kind of debt. Dong-hoon explains that he's just got a bunch of troublemakers after him. She asks about the second part of his condition. Since he's a novice, he's got a lot to learn, so he's seeking her guidance for anything like that, starting with the key in his hand. Seeing it, Soyul is surprised and questions if what he's holding is a medium. Of course, Dong-hoon doesn't get what that means, but he's hoping it's valuable enough to gain the attention of a powerful ranker. Soyul learns that he acquired the exclusive drop from the dungeon, even calling him a lucky man. The thing is, the chances of finding a rare item like this in a regular dungeon is next to zero. There's only 100 of these in the entire world, and it is also bound to the person who found it, which means it can never be traded. Still perplexed, Dong-hoon looks at her with a blank face and asks its purpose. Soil adds that mediums like these are a kind of fortuitous opportunity. Using them allows linked quests to pop up, and since those quests eventually increase in rank, they could reach the S-rank level, amounting to all kinds of exclusive drops. Hearing the word S-rank startles Dong-hoon. Soil added that even for rankers like herself, they're actively looking for valuables like that. Her face is drawn to a sad expression, implying her regret. She does end up accepting both of his conditions, making Dong-hoon very happy. At the same time, she has one condition of her own in exchange. The scene cuts from there as Soil and Dong-hoon go back to his room. She's a little underwhelmed that he's been living like shit, seeing the stacks of cup noodles on his desk. Dong-hoon feels bad, but Soil wants to follow him for the promise they made. Soil expresses that she doesn't detect any surveillance devices, as she tried scouting the environment. She also doesn't detect a powerful hunter in the building, doubling on his safety. Dong-hoon is impressed that she was meticulous in her search. She's glad to have confirmed the place he lives, and now, her plan is to stay on the rooftop for the meantime. As Soil leaves, she wants him to inform her before his next training session. Let's go back a step and see what happened in their meeting. Soil's condition was that she wanted to monitor Dong-hoon's training, since she's observed his energy ever since he cleared the dungeon, and has come to realize that he only keeps getting stronger. It has sparked her curiosity, and makes her wonder the reason responsible for kickstarting his rapid growth. Back to his room, Dong-hoon reflects that he explained everything about the fortuitous opportunity. That means, he told her about the old master who is currently training him vigorously in all kinds of ways. There's only one problem now, those being the terrifying group of shadow lurkers. They'll definitely be on the hunt for their missing target, but Dong-hoon is prepared to give them hell when that time comes. The following day, the old master smacks his body with his painful and powerful palms. Dong-hoon has to bear the brunt of this brutal training, while the elder explains that his body is slowly getting used to it, and that means he should boost the intensity. Poor guy has to eat so much pain and calls out his master for straight up assaulting him with violence. The elder calls him out for defaming his grand technique and severely making a mockery out of it. Filled with terror, Dong-hoon realizes that he phenomenally fucked up and has earned the old man's rage. The master keeps on battering him as he wails in agony, while Soil watches the scene. The system informs him that his pain-resistant skill has jumped up a level. His destroyed body rests before Soil, who is surprisingly calm. She tells him that despite seeing his training, she literally can't fathom its purpose. The fact that he's been going through this kind of training boggles her. Despite his explanations, Dong-hoon expresses that Soil shouldn't be able to see the old man regardless. She also can't follow along with the training because of how unique it is. The elder calls his weakling disciple to get back up since they've got 30 minutes to spare in training. Bro is defeated but realizes that he doesn't have any excuse to escape his wrath. Regarding the skeletons, Bonehead number 2 trained yesterday, allowing Bonehead 3 to switch in. The skeletons are consistently becoming stronger with every passing day, the only problem being that as much as they grow, the more Dong-hoon has to learn in their stead. Commanding open the status window, he sees all of his stats. Pleased with the recent developments, Dong-hoon is happy. Bonehead 1's /skill, Bonehead 2's thrust, 3's shot, and 4's block. He has so far learned every one of their skills, except for the mage, Bonehead 5. In order to learn its skill, Dong-hoon has to first understand and learn how to use ki within his body. The elder inscribes a circle into the ground and instructs him to sit crossed-legged. Dong-hoon does as he is told and simply sits down while awaiting further instructions. The elder orders him to recite the formula of the Great Blue Heart technique from last time. However, he is also instructed to focus while reciting the formula, allowing formless energy to pass through. Closing his eyes and intensifying his concentration, Dong-hoon recites the formula. In his thoughts, the elder explains that the breathing element of the technique is perhaps the most important. After all, if one can't sense Kai, then there's no choice for him but to receive the elder's beating. Bro realizes the stakes at hand and heightens his concentration even more. In his meditation, Dong-hoon desires to become stronger and is willing to endure anything it takes. The scene switches to Soil, who is glancing around at the rooftop. She wonders if it's really true that he's become the student of the old master, the same master who defeated her countless times with ease. She remembers his harsh words. Soil thought the fortuitous opportunity must have been the reason, but the reason behind Dong-hoon's strength is his ability to endure painful training every single day, to the point his bones are being rearranged. She acknowledges his skill, and feels as if there isn't any choice but to observe him. After all, the elder she faced is always beside him. Soil has gained a unique thread of hope, believing that she'll become stronger just by watching him train. Speaking of our boy, he's resting as we speak, while Soil anticipates how much he'll grow in the future. Now let's talk about the villains and head over to their headquarters. The Shadow Lurkers learned that Soil's interference caused the previous mission to fail, which is why they need additional support. Their leader expresses how they have difficult relations with the Parang Guild anyway. This man is Nick Jahan, notoriously known as the Hellhound, and ranked one of the best in the entire world. His underling apologizes for failing the mission before Soil's intervention. Jakan questions if this opportunity could really help him gain control of the hunters. The A-rank assassin confirms that Dong-hoon's case is interesting enough to draw the attention of Soyul. Jakan confirms that it's indeed interesting, and snaps his fingers, calling forth his secretary. He learns that they're booked for the next month to come, and asks for Dong-hoon's rank. After coming to learn that he's just an E-ranker, Jaekon feels like there won't be any trouble in handling them. He's ready to take on Donghoon on his own in 1 month. Meanwhile, the lousy Necromancer is persisting in his daily training while Soil watches him. Donghoon collapses after 40 reps. Soil calls for his name and draws near him, claiming that she has an important matter to discuss with him.